Hello there, and welcome back to Vintage Story. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm literally just in-game for a few minutes while I'm eating lunch before going out on a 28-kilometer run. That's going to take over 3 hours. But we did have a comment on my last video by the creator of the Food Shelves mod. And they pointed out a few things. One, that there will be updates to make the opening and closing mechanics more uniform. Right now, the cooling cabinet is the only one you need to shift click to open, whereas the other two you just right click to open. But you see here it says shift plus click to open. Oh, you know why it's working right now? It's because I've got my Meteor camera in my hand. If I don't have it in my hand, I can't do that because of the carry-on mod. It's a compatibility issue. The workaround is if you press Control and Shift and then right click, it will open. And of course, this is the cooler drawer where you put ice. Same with here and same with there. So we're going to go get ice in a little bit so that we can make these last even better. They also pointed out that the baskets are really just decorative, and it does say that in the description. However, if you do fill up the basket, put ice in here, and then put the food in the cabinet, it will last longer than the vessel. The thing is, the vessel holds 12 stacks of 64, which is, if I did my math right earlier, something like 700 and... I don't know. It holds a lot of food items, whereas the cooling cabinet, if you put a basket in every spot, the basket only holds 10. Yeah, it's 90. It's not worth doing. You're better off just using the storage vessel, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, so that's cool. Literally, you put ice in there. And the ice we need is actually glacial ice. Now, I've got some glaciers up here and over here. So we'll grab some glaciers later to show you how that's done. But I was just rewatching the video by Nelly Zen on how to hide seams, and it is quite creative. Essentially what they did was they took the chisel tool mod and they chiseled this sort of shape. I'm going to just grab my hammer again. We're going to make this 1 block wide. Then we can pick that up. Go up here. Can't place there because I'm in the way. Place that down there. And then we'll do one on each of these. And then we just run our support beams across it. Kind of like that. And yeah, it hides the seam. It is 1 block wide, but from a distance, can you really tell? You can tell a little bit with the shadow. So what we can do is we can just add a facade on all of these to sort of hide it better. But yeah, that's how you'd do it. I'm going to finagle it a little bit, move this a little further down. But that's roughly how it works. So that's what I'm going to be doing while I eat before I go out for my run, which is going to be torture. Yay. Yeah, you know what? I think swap out the beams for some acacia and do a bit more of these plaster, essentially panels. You know, they're 1 voxel wide to fill out the rest of that, and maybe even just do a face the entire building depending on how it looks, and that should be good. That does mean I've got to make a lot more plaster, at least on only this wall. Because this doesn't look that bad. But I'm going to have to come down. How did you get out? I'll deal with that later. I think that looks better than having the overhang. But yeah, like I said, acacia, because acacia beams would look like that. And that does kind of go with that better. Obviously, the red ceramic shingled beams would look even better. But I don't have the blueprint. I haven't found it yet from any ruins to make the shingles beams, so we can't do that. That's another thing we're waiting on for the barn, along with Cinnabar. Alright, so we're just up here gathering a bit of glacial ice. If I open this, we can cut the ice using a saw. That gives us 8 chunks of cut ice. After 12 hours in open storage, it melts into slush, which is mostly useless. But I don't know how long it will last in the cooler, you know? I imagine it probably lasts longer than just 8 hours, but we'll find out. But yes, I have plenty of glaciers around here to collect from. I am getting beaten up by landslides. I don't know if glacial ice regenerates. My gut tells me no. That'd be interesting to find out. Something cool about glacial ice, though, is you can actually use it instead of glass to make a greenhouse. Yeah, learned that from Rodamont. Definitely would never have known that on my own. That is 64. Let's pick up the few extras I dropped. But that should be more than enough to get us started. So now we just ride back home, cut up the ice, and see the difference it makes. Okay, made up the cut ice just using the saw, as I mentioned. So let's look at the fruit here. Grapes, 25 days, 13.9 days, 17.8 days, and then pears, 145. So Control Shift, click to open the drawer, and then Control click to add many. I just added 16. It'll melt in 5 days. And well, now the pears are good for 3 years, and the grapes are good for 135 days, 75 days, and 96 days. Alright, that makes a significant difference. Let's see, that porridge is good for 15 days. So let's grab 4 of these. We don't want to leave them in there. You see it's gone melt, so... Of course, the glacial ice doesn't look like it's gone melt in there, so that's fine. We can store the glacial ice for later. Whoops. And now... Gotta wait for it to cycle through. 38 days. So, doubled the... It doubled the shelf life. Nice. Okay. So there we go. Make some ice cubes. Gotta use glacial ice. And you can double the shelf life in the coolers. Now I have to go collect a whole bunch of animals to replace the ones I lost. Before I do that, though, we appear to have a furry friend outside. And a not so furry friend inside. And he dropped a bone arrow, which is all that he had on him. Okay, let's go upstairs. We can make bear armor now using, well, bears. So we have a brown bear hide with head. And I'm going to have to hunt around to collect all my arrows back. But let's see. We can oil it, soak it. If we soak it, we can turn it into a large pelt. Oil it. Let's see. And after it's oiled, there we go. So once we turn it into a pelt, so oiling it, we can then turn it into brown bear hide armor, boots, and helmet. And that is bones, pelt and coils of rope. And the leggings are the same. And the head is just a knife. Oh, okay, we can cut the head off of the pelt. And then use the head as our helmet. Okay. Might make that, well, I'm definitely gonna make that. We're gonna aim to have one of everything. I still want to make the full armor sets. Oh, I just realized I didn't seal any of these. So let's just seal one quickly. And place it in there. And now let's see what it says. 38 days unsealed and 1.4 years sealed. Nice. Back when we first set up over here, I said it'd be nice if we could clean up and restore this village to be, well, just restore the village. So I've been running around. I've literally spent about 2 days now in game, just clearing out all of the brush. The if I can find some. This here, where you get the birch leaves in little bushes on the ground. So I've just been running around cleaning them all out from, honestly, from a large area. I want to clear up like this whole area here because it does kind of obscure your vision, and I like actually having open fields of view, you know, believe it or not. And the village is already looking so much nicer with that stuff cleared out of the way. Now, I do have to rebuild everything. But I think once we have this cleaned up, we can start doing that. I know one of these buildings I want to use as a armory. So I can make all the different, or at least one of each different pieces of armor. I don't know if I'm going to try to tackle every single piece of armor like I tried last season. Instead, maybe go with one set of plate mail for each bit of armor, you know, and stick that in somewhere. If I can clean all this up, make this like a little stable, you know, make this whole area look nice. And that starts with clearing up the grass, and I'm going to need to move all the fruit plants too, remove the trees, and remove all the bushes. Yeah, I've used up 1,000 durability already, just clearing up bushes. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's apocalyptic out there. You can tell by the front door. There are 4 of them trying to get in. Anyway, we are working on this. I'd mentioned I wanted to make a cauldron or a cast iron stew pot hanging from the fire pit, or hanging as the fire pit. And so that's just the basic outline right now, because, you know, that is nowhere close to being done. But you can see we got the chain hanging down. Then we got this very ugly bucket that I was making. So I need to do now is turn this from this very ugly looking bucket into something that actually might resemble a cauldron. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm gonna give this an outer ring, I think. Do I want to? Maybe if I go down one? But if we do a rim like that, and then we can start removing the inside. And I can do this with island mode? Nope, that did not do what I wanted. Guess we gotta do it the hard way. Okay, that's good enough for now. And then we go back out here, and I need to... So this all has to come in at the bottom, right? We want to taper in and then flare out a little bit. That's gonna be tricky for me. I need this on a platform so I can see better. All right. Okay. You know, let's just taper in for now. So we're going to definitely taper in the bottom. We're also going to shrink it a bit too. I don't necessarily want it touching the bottom. If there's a fire pit down here, it needs to be sitting above the fire. So about we take it up to about there. And of course I'm going to have to fix the inside. But, that we just do like that. I think that's what I wanted. And then if we come out a little bit here. There are times I wish you could have something in 2 offhands so you can actually see better doing stuff like this. How does that look? The inside doesn't matter nearly as much because you're not going to be really looking inside it. I can, go around and double check, but I think rule of 3. And how about we lower this? We leave it on the edge there because that's where it meets the pot. Yeah, I think that works. And then if we just pick this up and put that right there, we have a nice little cauldron hanging from our oh, it's not quite hanging, is it? It's flush against the ground, but it's a bit of a cook pot hanging down. And then this does count as a fireplace, so we can toss, stuff in there. And what happens if we light it? There you go. Looks good enough to me. And yeah, it works as a cook pot. What happens if we put it works as a fireplace. So what if we put an actual cook pot there? It's hidden inside. I like that. That works. Not that we're going to be using that for cooking. We've got, well, will be a stove in here when I eventually get around to it. But the importance of this is to keep the house warm, or to warm myself up when I come in on cold, wet days. You know, you get your body temperature lower down. You throw a little firewood or peat here, you stand next to it, the radiant heat will warm you up. Alright, all the annoying ones have left. I'm gonna go back out exploring. I had to change up my plans. I was trying to get some sheep over here, but that didn't work. They kept dying on me. So I'm now breeding up some sheep and some goats over here. And when they have babies, I'll use the small animal cage to pick them up and bring them back. Which means it's going to take, you know, until probably closer to November before I have sheep back in here, but it's better than nothing. Alright, our bear pelt is done, well, becoming a pelt. So we got that. I went and got the bones and everything I need. We can cut the head off and grab just the pelt and then just the head. And then was 2 bones and a cord to make the bear helmet. 55% protection, tier 1, half point of health flat reduction. Makes you a little hungrier, you heal a little less, your ranged weapons are a little less accurate. Ranged weapons take a little longer to charge, and you're a little bit slower. Alright. And then this is not enough bones. Need to grab another 4 more bones. 8 more bones. Ah, look, I had some bones here. There we go, it's the brown bear pelt. Body armor. So if we compare this with the leather, it actually is a higher, equals protection tier. It has a higher flat damage reduction and a higher percentage damage reduction, but it does, again, you heal a little less, you get a little hungrier, your ranged attacks are a little worse, and you move a little slower, but it does also offer warmth. And for some reason, it is not rendering on my model. Well, that's a shame. And it's not rendering on my armor stand either. That is weird. Okay, well, when it decides it wants to work, it'll work, and we'll see what it looks like then. And all it took was a relog, and the armor works. Don't ask why, but there we go. Now we've got our bear armor. Looks pretty good. Goes well with the backpack. And yeah, it does offer a little more protection. And I'm not sure how you repair this stuff. Maybe thread like the other stuff gets repaired. But yeah, it offers a little more protection, but has a few negatives, but it does also keep you warmer, so it might actually be worth wearing in the winter as opposed to the leather. You know, added benefit of adding this 1 layer thick facade is I can come through and actually give the windowsills a little more shape, right? So we have this sill on the bottom, but on the top it was flush with the face of the wall. Now that I've added an extra layer on top of the wall here, I can come out even further with the wood and just make it sort of pop out a little bit. Gives it a little more 3D shape. It doesn't look flat. You know, casts a little bit of shadow. Not a ton. But it actually stands out now, whereas before, like, if you look up there, it's flat. You look there, just a little bit of shape. It helps it stand out a little more. I think it makes it look just that much nicer. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm giving every window on this side at least a little bit of shape, and I will go around and do it with all the other windows. This one will get the same treatment as that one because it is going to be, you know, this wall here. But now that I've shaped it, you can't even tell really. I'm obviously where it still needs to be added, you can tell, but just look at that part there. You can't even tell that there's an extra facade on it. So I think that looks great. Oh, right. I did grab that. So I can do that. There we go. Can't even tell. But I think I'm going to call it end here for today. So thank you for joining me today. Hope you've had a wonderful day. Thank you to my channel members for your support, and I'll see you next time. Later.